one.
Donna Mooney Jennison. I'm here to speak against this resolution, and the reason being, I said Jennison, Donna Mooney Jennison, Donna Mooney Jennison. The reason that I'm speaking against this is because today, more than ever, we are 44th in the nation for education here in Michigan. We have more children today dealing with mental health issues, dealing with sexual issues, and I firmly believe that is coming from a lot of what is being taught. And I agree with the one lady, I forgot her name, that is being taught. That is learned behavior, and we're confusing these kids. They need to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, history. They need to learn things that are going to make them productive citizens in this country. Nobody is discriminating, but we shouldn't be teaching young children about different sexual lifestyles in the school districts. It's not relevant to their productivity as adults. They'll learn that on their own later on, and they certainly don't need access to materials that are very sexually explicit, some of which I've seen myself and have demanded that they be removed from my library. So that is my 2 cents. I'm against it.
This past weekend, I attended the Michigan Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly at the annual leadership conference. And while I attended the assembly and conference as a representative of the district I serve, I'm speaking to you tonight as a parent of children in Jenison Public Schools. At the delegate assembly, which was publicly live streamed and recorded, I was deeply troubled to hear the delegates selected to attend and vote on behalf of the JPS Board of Education move to strike a resolution affirming the importance of student access to inclusive literature in school libraries and media centers. I know I don't always see eye to eye with the board on the importance of representation and fostering belonging, so I wasn't entirely surprised to hear that the board wanted to remove this resolution, but I was shocked to hear the justification for the removal. The justification given was that mental illnesses in our youth are connected to children having access to literature with LGBTQ themes, and more, that this is being taught to children by the school system. This statement, made on behalf of our district's Board of Education, was profoundly disappointing, and frankly, it was alarming to me to hear that my children's Board of Education equates being part of the LGBTQ community with having a mental illness. I want to be clear, this is not about the delegate personally. Our personal beliefs don't align on this issue, but I've always had good interactions with them, and I've enjoyed our conversations, and they are entitled to their own beliefs. But this wasn't a case of an individual exercising their First Amendment rights as a citizen in a public comment. Delegates had to identify themselves and the board they represent before speaking, and they voted on behalf of their boards in a formal governance proceeding. All board members received a copy of the delegate handbook and the resolutions to be voted on directly from MASB last month. The delegate handbook instructs boards to discuss the positions the delegate should take at the assembly. It's no surprise then that the statements of the delegates would be interpreted by viewers as their board's position and not an individual's personal beliefs. My concern then is that I've been attending board meetings since before COVID, and I didn't know that this was our board's position. All weekend, people from across the state approached me to ask what it's like to be a parent in Jenison given the statement that our Board of Education endorsed. That was heartbreaking. Your words and actions as a board, whether spoken in this room or on a statewide stage, shape how our community, our district, and our children are perceived. The video of the delegate assembly is available to the public online, and it shows our board taking a very firm stance against making inclusive literature available to students in libraries and media centers. This record will exist in the public forever, and there's no equally public record in existence that I'm aware of to suggest that this is not the stance of the board. I hope our board will publicly discuss the resolution and clarify the board's position on it. If the statement at the assembly is representative of the board's position, so be it. But if not, I hope our board will clarify this in a way that is at least as permanent and publicly available as the record that suggests it is. Our students, staff, and community deserve to know where you stand. I have a copy. All of you should have a copy of the resolution, and you all actually should have a copy of the link to the recording from MASB, but I have it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I would like to ask some questions. I think we had a
community member ask about the statement that was made at MASB, the MSBA meeting.
Yeah.
Donna, does that
Yes.
accurately reflect what you said?
So, no, I would like to clarify a couple things, and actually, I did go ahead and print out, and for the record, I did not say anything that I have not publicly said in this boardroom before, where everybody knows my stance on certain things. So, the other thing is that if the resolution was put out last month, I actually was not aware of that, and maybe that's because I am, this is my first time as a delegate going to vote. So I was expecting my agenda to come from the MASB, which came last week on Monday. And I know this because I've been looking for it and looking for it. So I had 3 days to read through it, which is why I think I pretty much finished it before I left to head up to Traverse City. That said, I did not ask to have 2 of these resolutions removed. I supported another board member who stood up and asked to have these 2 resolutions pulled, which meant that they were pulled out of the main general resolution and voted on individually. They still passed. I was in the minority, and you know what, that's okay. I'm perfectly fine standing on my own 2 feet when it comes to something that I believe in. My comments were with regards to, and I'm gonna go ahead and, here's one for you, Jen. Thank you. And then I printed out 7 of them, so Brandon, you can have one. Pass these down this way. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't feel that sexually explicit materials belong in school libraries. I really don't care what people have access to outside of school. I don't feel that we should be providing sexually explicit books or materials in school libraries. And that is not anti-LGBTQ. That is, I don't care if it's heterosexual. I don't care if it's homosexual. It does not benefit our kids to be having more and more sexually explicit material put into the schools, put into the literature that they consume. When we look at the last 10 to 20 years through education, yes, we have way more mental health issues today than we did when I was in school. We've got that going on. Yes, they are confused. I'd like to know, I would like people to be asking the question, and I have to ask the question, why is anybody okay with having sexually explicit material in schools? Why do we think that children need to be taught that in the schools? To me, that's a bigger problem that we should be asking. So I didn't go up there with the intent to ask to have these 2 resolutions removed, but when somebody else stood up and asked them to be removed, I was happy to support her. That said, I had a fabulous conversation with another board member from the east side of the state after the delegate assembly, somebody who does not look like me, okay, who was thankful that I stood up and did not want her child to see sexually explicit material in the schools either. And she made a good point. She said, you know, when somebody like you stands up and speaks out against it, you know, I think that there was discussion. I think, you know, somebody mentioned the word bigot, somebody else mentioned the word ignorant, and I have to wonder what's bigoted or ignorant about not wanting to have sexually explicit materials in the school districts. So like I said, That has been my stance, and I'm perfectly comfortable, going in and holding that stance.
Well, you and I, we disagree on what constitutes sexually explicit, because in talking about sexuality, I do not think that's sexually explicit. We talked about that, and we can let that go. My issue, Donna, when you stood up and supported that, you were representing this entire board, and
Right.
we did not have a conversation about that at all. This is not just you saying that, it represents the whole
Sure.
board. And what I think that's, what you did is the antithesis of what I would wanna do. And by doing that, I feel
Well,
like
you're
it's a little.
welcome to go next year.
That's fine, but you represented us, and that constitutes a bit of a stretch. I'm trying to tone down what I want to say, but by representing us in that way without discussing it, it's a bit of a betrayal. I'll just be honest with you. Because if we discussed that and we'd come to a vote and you had said, yes, I want to support, if somebody else does this, that's fine. So I have to express my extreme disappointment, not necessarily standing up for what you believe in, but representing us in that way without having asked any of us if we also agree with that. Now, I know there's probably a few on the board that would agree with that, but this is something we as a board need to discuss before we have a public demonstration of support for something like that, okay? Because I do not support you doing that. I just want to make that clear to everybody.
And
I would not
that's
have supported
okay.
that,
And
okay?
you're, you know, and.
That's fine, but you were representing the entire board, not just you.
And I get
So-
that, but here's the thing, I did say that this is, and it is on record, you can go listen to it. This is my opinion, I was very clear about that. I can't help how other people interpret that, and you're right, I was there to, something that when I stood up and I said what I said, I didn't think about that until after. So my apologies to you, if you're embarrassed by what I stood up for, my apologies to anybody else.
I'm not embarrassed,
However-
I'm angry that you
That's okay,
misrepresented some of us, that's what I am.
You can be
so.
angry, that's fine, you're entitled to that, but I still stand by what I believe and I stand by what I said.
One of the things that I'm hearing on this is, you know, you didn't have an opportunity as a board to look at those things ahead of time and have conversation. And I'm just wondering as we have another opportunity next year that we're gonna have, send a representative.
Someone else
Katie,
can go.
no, and I just think that we should try to get it,
Information before.
that information out.
And have a
I don't
conversation.
receive it.
You don't get it?
It's
Okay.
November.
And
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't receive it until last
Well,
Monday,
and,
so
and,
I
and,
had
and
3
here's, and here's,
days.
here's a point of order on this. I mean, you said you got this 3 days before the meeting roughly.
Yes,
I mean, there's no possible, unless there's some more channels of information that is disseminated for us to have gotten information, reviewed the information, discussed the information in that type of a window.
that's correct.
So I don't know again, because it's been a long time since I'll be straight there. Back when I was younger in my tenure on the board, I went and since then it's been kind of, in a sense, handed down to newer members that I don't ever remember when 15 years ago, there was quite as contentious possible resolutions and topics, but I never remember us as a board ever reviewing resolutions before we were doing that.
Last year when I went, I brought it to everybody.
She did.
I had enough time,
Okay.
and her saying she got it only a few days beforehand.
Monday.
Yeah.
Cause I went back through, like I said, I'd been looking for it so that I could make sure that I read if I had any questions. Well, it's month end, I was very busy last week, I was on the road, I had 3 days to read 50 pages.
Did everybody
So-
else get it? Cause
Well,
my
that's why-
understanding was just the delegates got it.
Right,
Yeah,
that
my
makes me
understanding
concerned.
too.
But it didn't come to the school, it goes right to the board member.
That
Yeah.
you
Okay.
certify.
And if we got it in our emails, I wish that
I don't remember
we
seeing
were, I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish we were aware
But
that we
could
did
that
get it.
become a future practice, that
Yeah.
whoever's the delegate, when they get that, they forward it on to the
Mhm.
board to say,
Or we all get
Okay,
it
yeah.
in advance notice, cause it, if I understood Miss Gray, what she said, that we should have gotten it at least a month in advance.
Did you say that right
It's
there?
at 9:23 from
9:20.
Yeah, from MASB is the delegate of the
That's-
Canada.
Cause they sent it to me initially, and then we chose her,
Oh, they did?
yes. And I
So
had-
because you're a former delegate
Correct.
from last year.
Right,
So I guess that would be a good, best practice, that it send it to all of us, any of the board members, and then so that we're all aware of that. And that she doesn't go in without misrepresenting us, or representing us, whatever.
Sure, because I would have, if I would have seen that and we would have discussed it and I would have saw that, I would have said the same thing. I don't like that, I'm not good with that or whatever, but it just so happened that somebody else beat me to that punch and I felt like they needed support. It is like being in a, I'm just gonna say it, in a snake pit, you know? There's a very one-way line of thinking, and I feel that those of us who are not on that bandwagon need to have some support when we stand up for things, and if I'm the only one standing up, so be it. I'm gonna do it.
But as Chris said, it is our policy that in most cases, only the board president speaks as for the board. We don't
Unless
go-
it's
We don't go out to, we don't get interviewed
Given
in
the
the paper, we don't
authority.
go to a township meeting or a Ottawa County meeting or anything. And we're not even supposed to say, hi, I'm Bill, that's it, I'm not Bill from the board.
I've
If
never
you're-
said that I'm from,
But if you say
in
you're from
anything that I-
Jenison School Board and not saying that, and if you don't say that I have the total support of the board or we voted on this ahead of time, then that is, you're not sure that you're representing the board. then I
It's
would not
understood
say
that she's
anything.
representing the board in a sense, because you wouldn't be allowed to speak
Right, right.
in front of the delegation without having that. Again, I think that comes down to, I think, our due diligence going forward in terms of how, and whether Chris, again, knowing the relative temperature of the board, doesn't support or not, at least then you would have preemptively know where everybody stood before she represents us there. And I think that was the way it is. I mean, that's kind of how this just can't happen again.
And we're gonna have to have a standing.
And I don't fault you
Having
at
this
all.
conversation.
No.
And we're gonna have to have double check that we all have access before that
yeah,
conversation happens.
I'm perfectly okay with that.
Katie, can you put a reminder in board notes that as we discuss the delegate representative, that we just bring this conversation up again for next year, just to say, when the items come across, let's make sure everybody has an opportunity to view and give feedback to whoever the delegate is that's elected.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with her saying which view is better or not,
Yep.
but I'm just saying that we gotta make sure
Process.
that how we
Sure.
represent ourselves in front of others